The Sierra Nevada night was a monster made of teeth and ice that chewed on everything it could reach. The mountain roads were battered by blizzard winds, and the snow was so thick that it erased all signs of the world that had been there before the storm. The headlights flickered like stars that were about to go out, and then there was darkness. The only warmth was inside a broken sheriff's truck, where the heat was stifled by the rising panic. Ethan Connors, a sergeant, blinked through the pain of smoke and blood, his mind going in and out of memory. Everything was upside down and blurry. His wrists hurt because the zip ties were digging into his skin. He tasted copper and felt bruises growing on his jaw and cheek. The coppery taste of fear was all too familiar, but to his right, Deputy Monica Price coughed and opened her eyes wide as she tried to make sense of the nightmare. Flames licked the hood of their squad car, the plastic on the dashboard melted, and fuel leaked underneath. Every crackle was a danger. Monica tried to reach Ethan, but her hands were tied, and she was breathing heavily. Troy Benson, the youngest member of the crew, was curled up on the broken seat with his hands shaking violently. "It's on fire, Ethan, please." His voice broke down into a whimper, the kind of fear that goes back to childhood. The smoke got thicker, and it was hard to see. Outside, the wind screamed. Ethan, quote, his mind was racing, and pieces were snapping together in pain. They had been following up on a tip about a lost hiker or a stranded driver. He thought the call was wrong, but he kept going because he trusted the badge and the process. Now guilt hit him like a hammer. He had gotten Monica and Troy into this. He made the choice, his group, his job. "Ethan," Monica gasped. The flames under the hood grew stronger, and oily black smoke filled the cab, causing everyone to panic. Her face was covered in ash, and her eyes were wide with fear. She fought against the zip ties until her skin broke. "We're going to die," she choked and coughed up blood. "We're going to burn." Suddenly, something moved through the broken passenger window. It was a shape against the blizzard, impossibly dark and big. A dog? Ethan squinted, not believing it. A German shepherd that was tall and thin, with snow on its fur and a jagged scar running down its side. Its yellow-flecked eyes met his, and Ethan felt a rush of recognition go through his body. Blitz? The name came out. He hadn't said it in a year, not since the fire. The department's famous K9, Blitz, is thought to be dead, or worse because of the fire. But now, in the flesh, limping but alive, Blitz was not a ghost. The dog's head dropped, and its teeth were bared. But not at them. They were at the bindings. The flames roared louder and licked the windshield. The heat got to be too much to handle. Ethan couldn't move as he watched Blitz go under the car, his teeth flashing and his determination clear. Monica screamed. An explosion from under the hood sent a wave of heat and shrapnel through the night. Ethan, quote, SS heart raced as he fought his own panic. He could feel the heat burning his skin and smell hair burning. His instincts told him to move, to do something, to save his team. He turned and angled his wrists toward the space where Blitz was working hard. There was a snap, and then the plastic tie broke, which was a relief. He worked on Monica's restraints first, then Troy, quote, the next second. Blitz came up, his muzzle bloody from the effort but happy. Ethan picked up Monica and Troy, who was in shock and barely able to stand, and they fell into the blinding snow. The cold was awful, but the outside air was thankfully clear of smoke. The truck behind them blew up as they staggered through the snow. Flames and twisted metal shot out of the truck, lighting up the white landscape like a flare. Shards of glass and burning debris whistled by, sticking in the snow with sickening hisses. Monica fell to her knees and coughed up black phlegm while holding Troy. The young deputy cried and couldn't stop his teeth from chattering. Blitz pressed against Ethan, his tail thumping weakly in the snow, and his eyes were full of old memories and new pain. Ethan knelt down and held Blitz's neck. How are you still alive?" His voice trembled. Blitz's answer was a soft whine as he pushed his head into Ethan's chest. Ethan saw the tracks in the snow then. They were sharp and clear, and they went around the car. They were more than just animal tracks. They were also boot prints and tire marks, too many for just the three of them. They had been set up and corralled like sheep into a pen for slaughter. He looked at the ridge above him, and his blood ran cold. There were threats all over the forest, shadows moving between the pines, and men with rifles, their faces covered by scarves and goggles. "Don't let any of them get away!" The leader's voice rang out over the storm. Gunshots rang out. Breaking through the trees, Ethan pushed Monica and Troy forward, then dropped low and used Blitz as cover. "Run! Into the woods! Go now!" Blitz, with his nose to the wind, darted ahead, limping but determined. The forest swallowed them whole, a maze of snow and darkness. The burning truck behind them lit up the hillside like a funeral pyre for their old lives. Only the howling blizzard and the unknown lay ahead. But Blitz was back. The dog that had once saved Ethan's life and had lived through fire and storm was now their only hope in a night that seemed to never end. Snow swallowed their tracks almost as soon as their boots pressed down. Ethan forced Monica and Troy through knee-deep drifts, his own lungs burning, adrenaline fading into exhaustion. Behind them, the glow of the burning truck painted the snow in shades of orange and black, a beacon for every gunman on the ridge. Monica coughed violently, streaks of blood at her lips. "Ethan, I can't—" She slipped, falling to one knee. Blitz was at her side instantly, pressing his body close, lending what little warmth he could. The shepherd's tail thumped in the powder, a small, steady signal of hope in the blinding dark. Ethan dropped down beside her, tearing off his jacket. He draped it over Monica, then scanned Troy, who was hugging himself, shivering uncontrollably, his wide eyes locked on the tree line. The air crackled with tension. Each breath was a knife. "We have to keep moving," Ethan whispered, voice hoarse. He glanced down at Blitz, the dog's fur dusted with ice, his side rising and falling with heavy pants. "If we stay here, we're done." Troy didn't answer, his teeth chattering. Monica tried to stand, legs shaking. "What if they're right behind us? We're bleeding, Ethan." "We're not alone," Ethan said, nodding toward Blitz. "He found us. He'll get us out." Even as he said it, a strange mix of awe and guilt twisted in his chest. Blitz was supposed to be gone, lost in the wildfire, a memory that haunted his dreams. And now, against all odds, the dog was here, defiant against the storm. A sharp report echoed through the trees, a gunshot, closer than before. Bark splintered off a pine just feet from Monica's head. "Go!" Ethan shouted, yanking her up. Blitz surged forward, nose low, weaving a jagged trail through the snow. Monica gripped Troy's arm, and the three deputies staggered after the shepherd, adrenaline burning away fear. They moved as one broken unit, following Blitz deeper into the timberline. Ethan scanned the shadows, every gust of wind a phantom, every snap of a branch a possible attacker. The cold cut through their uniforms, stinging exposed skin. Still, Blitz pushed forward, pausing now and then to look back, making sure his people were close behind. Suddenly, the dog stopped, hackles raised, ears flicking. He doubled back, nosing Ethan's thigh, then darted to a pile of brush near the edge of a ravine. Without a word, Ethan knelt and reached under the brush. Blitz had uncovered a length of old rope, coiled and half-frozen. "Good boy," Ethan murmured, heart pounding. He tied the rope to a nearby tree, securing a makeshift rappel for Monica and Troy. Monica moved first, hands still shaking but determined. She slid down the embankment, snow soaking through her clothes. Troy followed, slipping halfway down and tumbling the last few feet, where Monica caught him with a grunt. Ethan came last. Blitz pressed close behind, the dog's body a shield against the worst of the wind. As they huddled in the hollow below, Ethan scanned the ridge above. Flashlights flickered between the trees, shadows in pursuit. He squeezed Monica's shoulder. "We keep moving," he said quietly. "Don't look back." Blitz pressed his head to Ethan's knee, yellow eyes scanning the dark. Monica coughed, her hands stained red with blood. Troy wiped his face, tears freezing before they could fall. The sense of dread was overwhelming. Every breath felt borrowed. They moved through the trees, low and silent, following Blitz as he led them in zigzags to mask their trail. The snow thickened. Occasionally, Ethan saw signs: boot prints, broken branches, the distant gleam of a flashlight. They were being hunted. At last, Blitz stopped again. Nose working furiously, he led them off the main trail and behind a cluster of boulders. Ethan crouched down, studying the tracks in the snow. There, two sets of heavy boots, moving quickly away from the explosion. Tire treads, still visible despite the falling snow, pointed back toward the main road. "We were set up," Ethan muttered, anger rising. "Whoever did this, they wanted us dead." Monica drew in a shaky breath, wiping blood from her lips. "How did they know we'd be out here tonight?" Ethan didn't answer. He didn't have to. The only certainty was that their enemies were close and growing bolder by the minute. A volley of gunfire erupted from the trees. Bullets tore through the silence, snapping branches and sending snow flurries flying. "Down!" Ethan barked, tackling Troy as Monica dove behind a fallen log. Blitz darted into the fray, barking, his body low and tense. The gunfire paused, as if the attackers were startled by the sudden wild presence of the dog. Blitz crawled back to Ethan, his nose caked with snow, eyes blazing. Ethan pressed his forehead to Blitz's, closing his eyes for half a second. Grateful for the dog's loyalty, desperate for the strength to go on. Another gunshot rang out. This time a voice, cruel, familiar, echoed through the trees. "Give it up, Connors! There's nowhere left to run!" Ethan stiffened. That voice. Mason Delacroix, once a brother in arms, now the architect of their nightmare. Blitz's tail swept the snow, his gaze never leaving Ethan's. With a growl, the shepherd nudged Ethan's leg, then turned, leading the way deeper into the wilderness. Monica limped after, her grip tightening on Troy's jacket. They plunged forward, guided only by the dog's intuition and the dim hope that somewhere in the white abyss, safety waited. The snowstorm howled, drowning out their footsteps, hiding their pain from the world. But Blitz, lost to the wild a year ago, was now the difference between death and survival. And in that howling blizzard, Ethan knew. As long as Blitz led the way, they still had a chance. They moved through the endless white, Ethan half carrying Monica, Troy stumbling after, Blitz never straying more than a few feet ahead, even as his limp grew worse. The cold was so fierce it made their bones ache. After what felt like hours, the storm began to swallow sound itself, everything muffled by the hush of falling snow and the weight of dread. Blitz stopped at the edge of a thicket, nose pressed to the ground, ears pricked. With a low whine, he nosed through the brush, vanishing into a darkness that seemed to open up from the earth itself. Ethan followed, blinking at what emerged from the shadows, a derelict ranger cabin, nearly lost beneath drifts of snow and sagging pine boughs. Ethan hauled Monica up the sagging porch steps. The door groaned open with a single determined shove. Blitz darted inside first, tail stiff, checking corners. The place smelled of mold and old wood, the air icy but sheltered from the howling blizzard. With a deep sigh, Ethan set Monica down on the warped floorboards and helped Troy in. He turned to brace the door, sliding an old beam across to bar it. Inside, the cabin was a snapshot of abandonment. Dusty lanterns on rusted hooks, blankets long since gnawed by mice, broken furniture scattered about. But it was a sanctuary, for now. Ethan moved with urgency, lighting a half-used candle from his kit and checking Monica's wounds. Her lips were pale, her breath rattled. Blood had soaked through her sleeve. He cleaned the cut with trembling hands, cursing under his breath. Blitz sat beside Monica, pressing his flank into her as if willing his own warmth into her bones. Troy rocked back and forth in a corner, arms wrapped around his knees. His eyes darted, wild with old fear. "I can't breathe. It's just like before." His voice trembled, lost in memory. "The smoke, the heat, my house." Ethan knelt beside him. "Troy, look at me." He reached for Troy's hand and squeezed. "We're alive, son. We got out. Blitz got us out." Troy's breath came in short, jagged gasps, his knuckles white. "What if they find us? What if the fire? What if it comes back?" Ethan shook his head. "We've got walls. We've got each other. That's enough for now." Blitz padded over, silent and gentle, and sat so close Troy could feel the dog's heartbeat thumping steady. Troy clutched a tuft of Blitz's fur, grounding himself in the present, alive in the dark, with the only creature that could still make him believe in hope. Monica finally broke her silence, voice so soft it barely rose above the blizzard's lull. "Do you think we'll make it, Ethan?" She didn't look at him, just stared at the dog, fingers absently twisting the corner of a blanket. Ethan didn't answer. He let the silence stretch, feeling the weight of every choice, every mistake that led them here. He remembered a time years ago when Blitz had pulled him from a collapsed building, both of them gasping for air, both changed forever by the ordeal. Now the dog sat quietly between them, scars glowing in the dim light, eyes full of loyalty and sorrow. "Blitz never gave up," Ethan finally said, voice hoarse. "We can't either." A gust rattled the windows, shaking loose a cloud of dust. Monica winced as Ethan finished bandaging her arm, his fingers sure even as they trembled. She glanced at him, guilt flickering in her eyes. "I should have seen the setup. I should have—" He cut her off with a look. "This isn't on you." She pressed her lips together, then nodded. "Thank you." But Ethan saw the guilt still simmering beneath the surface, a mirror of his own. As the candle flickered low, Blitz circled the tiny room, nose to the ground. He stopped abruptly near the hearth, sniffing at a loose floorboard. With a soft woof, he pawed at it, then nudged it loose with his muzzle. Ethan moved to help, lifting the splintered board away. Underneath, coated in dust, lay a battered first aid kit and something else, metal gleaming dully in the candlelight. It was an old sheriff's badge, tarnished but unmistakable. Monica picked it up with reverence, turning it over in her hands. Whoever this belonged to, they didn't run. Her voice was barely a whisper. Ethan took the badge, tracing its edges with his thumb. It was a reminder of those who'd come before, those who'd faced darkness and chose to stand their ground. He slid the badge into his pocket, next to his own battered one, the one he'd carried since his rookie days. Blitz watched with bright, unblinking eyes, his tail tapping softly against the floor. The storm raged on outside, wind shrieking through the trees. But inside the cabin, a strange kind of peace settled over the group, heavy but not hopeless. Monica lay back against the wall, eyes fluttering closed, her breathing finally evening out. Troy, still clutching Blitz's fur, stared into the dancing shadows, lost in a storm of memories. Ethan watched his team, broken, battered, but alive. He let himself feel the full weight of gratitude and the agony that came with it. He'd brought them into this hell. It was his job to get them out. But in this quiet, haunted place, with Blitz standing guard, a thin thread of hope, so fragile it almost hurt, began to weave through his soul. He rested his hand on Blitz's head, feeling the familiar shape of the scar beneath his fur. "You saved us, old friend," he murmured, voice breaking. Outside, the blizzard howled, a reminder that the world was still cruel. But inside, for the first time all night, Ethan believed they might just have a chance, if they could hold on to each other, and the courage Blitz had shown. Night seemed endless in the heart of the storm. The only proof that time passed at all was the slow guttering of the candle, the deepening chill that pressed in around the ranger cabin like an accusation. Wind clawed at the windows, rattling panes and making the ancient wood shudder with every gust. Still, inside, it was warmer than the wilds outside, warmer even than the inside of a burning squad car. Ethan kept moving, his body operating on stubborn habit. He found an old lantern in a dusty corner, filled it with what little fuel he could scavenge, and struck a spark. The steady glow gave the room shape and definition, casting Monica and Troy in gentle amber light. Blitz settled near the door, ears alert, nose twitching, eyes fixed on every shifting shadow. Troy sat slumped against the wall, still pale and shaky. Monica was at his side, wrapping him in a thin blanket she'd found. His panic had ebbed, but the residue clung to him. Every time a gust hit the walls, he flinched, haunted by memories that wouldn't let him go. Monica took a steadying breath, then reached for Troy's hand. "Hey, you're doing great. You're here, you're safe." Her words were soft, but the edges were frayed with worry. Troy tried to force a smile, but it faltered. "It's stupid. I keep seeing... I can't help it. I smell smoke, and I'm right back there. Fire everywhere. I was just a kid. I never thought it would come back for me." She squeezed his hand, voice low. "That's not stupid, Troy. It's human." Ethan, meanwhile, turned his attention to his own injuries. The cut on his arm pulsed with every heartbeat, blood darkening the sleeve of his shirt. He'd lost too much already tonight to let himself falter. He set out the first aid kit Blitz had unearthed and threaded a needle by lantern light, hands steady but breath tight. Every prick of the needle drew a silent wince, but he didn't pause. Survival was a routine, an old ritual. Patch, bind, move on. Blitz watched, head tilted, as Ethan stitched the wound with practiced care. The dog's presence was a steady anchor, a silent promise that even after all that had happened, some bonds couldn't be broken. The lantern cast strange shadows on the walls, drawing long, shifting silhouettes. Monica's eyes flicked to Ethan, catching his pain in the slant of his shoulders. "You need help?" she asked, voice raw. He shook his head, teeth gritted. Done this before, not the first time. She offered a half smile. You're a terrible patient, Connors. He managed a small huff, almost a laugh. You have no idea. For a few minutes they let the silence settle, punctuated only by the soft creak of the cabin, the sigh of the wind, and Blitz's rhythmic breathing. Monica hesitated, then finally let the guilt that had been eating at her spill out into the open. I should have seen it, she whispered, staring at the flickering lantern. The ambush, the fake tip. I trusted the source. I vouched for the call. Her voice wavered. If it weren't for me, maybe we wouldn't be here. Ethan stopped, meeting her gaze. Don't. This isn't on you, Monica. I'm the one who gave the order. She shook her head stubbornly. I vouched. I should have known. He softened, voice barely more than a whisper. We're all here because we believe in the job, in each other. Sometimes that's all it takes to get burned. Monica's eyes glistened, but she blinked them clear. Thanks, Sarge. Troy watched the exchange, drawing a shaky breath. If Blitz hadn't shown up, his voice cracked. I don't think I would have made it. Blitz lifted his head at his name, giving Troy a soft nudge, the gesture gentle and grounding. Seemed to pull Troy out of his spiral. Ethan ran his hand over Blitz's scarred fur, fighting back his own tears. Memories flooded him. Late nights with his wife, laughter echoing through their tiny house, Blitz asleep at her feet. She'd loved the dog, called him her shadow, her guardian. Now, in this frozen place, it was Blitz who kept them anchored, the only living bridge to a world that seemed impossibly far away. A sudden sound snapped the room's fragile peace. Monica, searching through an old trunk in the corner, pulled out a rolled-up map, yellowed and fragile. She spread it on the floor, lantern light illuminating faded lines and scribbled notes. Look, she said, tracing a route with her finger. There's an old mining tunnel here. If we're lucky, it'll run under the ridge. Maybe give us a way out. The sheriff who owned this place must have stashed it for emergencies. Ethan leaned in, studying the route. If we can reach it before sunrise, we might have a shot. Before he could finish, Blitz froze, his entire body rigid, ears pinned forward. Outside, the wind carried something new. Voices, muffled but unmistakable. The distant flicker of flashlights bounced off the snow, moving closer, too close. Ethan's jaw clenched. They've found us. He snapped the lantern off, plunging the cabin into darkness. Monica hurriedly gathered the map and medical supplies. Troy shuddered but nodded, steeling himself. Blitz stood by the door, every muscle tense. His eyes met Ethan's, communicating more than words ever could. It's time to move. Ethan gathered the others. We stick together. We move fast. No noise, Blitz leads. The group crouched by the back exit, every sense on edge, breaths shallow. Outside, the world was a nightmare of blinding snow and approaching danger. But as Blitz pushed open the door and slipped into the storm, his tail flicked, a silent signal of hope, courage, and the bonds that might just save them all. The world outside the ranger cabin was an endless, brutal white, wind carving every tree into a ghost, the cold a constant gnawing pain. Ethan led the way, flashlight off, guided only by Blitz's shadowy form drifting ahead. Monica and Troy moved close behind, the group breathing as quietly as possible, hearts racing with the fear that every crunch in the snow might be their last. Blitz paused at a half-buried hatch near the edge of a ravine. He pawed at it, clearing snow until the metal ring appeared. Ethan crouched, feeling the ice bite into his palms as he heaved the hatch open. The faint, sour scent of old air and rock wafted up from below. Monica didn't hesitate. She helped Troy down the rusty ladder first, then slipped in after. Blitz was next, sliding nimbly despite his limp. Ethan followed, pulling the hatch shut above them, darkness swallowing the group. Inside, the world narrowed to the circle of a battered lantern and the rough echo of their breaths. The air was cold, but not lethal, and thick with the memory of miners and men who'd fought for survival in the deep places of the earth. Water dripped somewhere far away. The silence was immense. Monica's hands shook as she pulled the map from her coat. It says the tunnel runs east. If we keep right, we should come out above the highway. Ethan nodded, running a hand along the damp stone wall. Stay close. Blitz, lead. They crept forward, their boots scraping against ice and loose gravel. Behind them, Blitz used his nose to kick loose a cascade of debris at the mouth of the crawlspace, masking their scent, erasing their tracks. It was a small act, but one that drew a grateful look from Ethan. The dog's instincts were as sharp as ever. As they moved deeper, the tunnel narrowed, forcing them into a crouch. Troy's breathing grew harsh, every step harder than the last. The shadows pressed in, making the world feel smaller and smaller until it seemed there was no space left to move, to breathe, to hope. Troy froze, knees buckling beneath him. I can't do this. His words came out ragged, nearly a sob. His hands scrabbled for the rough wall, sweat breaking on his brow despite the cold. I can't go any farther. Monica crawled back, wrapping her arms around him. Look at me. You're not back there. You're here with us. Her voice was strong, but gentle, a lifeline in the dark. But Troy was shaking, eyes wild, the old terror from childhood fires gripping him tight. It's like being buried alive. I can't, please. Blitz edged forward, his warm, solid body pressing into Troy's side. The shepherd rested his head in Troy's lap, offering quiet, steady comfort. For a moment, the only sound was Troy's ragged breathing and Blitz's steady heartbeat, a living anchor in the cold earth. Slowly, Troy's panic ebbed, replaced by tears. He stroked Blitz's fur, grounding himself. Thanks, buddy, he whispered, voice breaking. You're braver than I'll ever be. Monica helped Troy to his feet. Let's keep moving. We're almost there. She looked at Ethan, eyes shining with gratitude and something softer. Hope, maybe, fighting its way through the fear. Ethan gave her a nod. Blitz gets us out of this. He's getting a steak every night for the rest of his life. A faint smile flickered across Monica's lips. He's earned it. They kept moving, shuffling through the darkness, every inch of progress a battle. Monica's energy faded, her body trembling from blood loss and shock. She leaned against the tunnel wall, struggling to catch her breath. I've never felt so helpless, she admitted, her voice barely more than a whisper. I'm supposed to be the one people count on. But now... She let the thought die in the darkness. Ethan reached back, squeezing her shoulder. You're here, you're fighting. That's enough. We're all just surviving now. They paused, listening for sounds above. Footsteps, voices, the threat of pursuit. A sudden murmur echoed down the shaft. Men's voices, sharp and angry, bouncing off the stone. Ethan held up a hand, heart thudding. He pulled everyone into a narrow alcove, pressing their bodies against the freezing wall, not daring to breathe. The voices became clearer. They have to be down here. Nobody gets out, a man barked. Mason Delacroix's voice, cold, vengeful, cut through the others. Find them. They know too much. We end it tonight. Monica's fingers found Ethan's sleeve. "They're not giving up," she whispered. Ethan's mind raced. He scanned the tunnel for anything, a weapon, a way out, a chance. He looked to Blitz, who was crouched low, eyes fierce, muscles trembling with readiness. As the pursuers moved past, unaware of the deputies hiding in the shadows, Ethan caught a phrase that made his blood run colder. "That flash drive. If Connors gets it out, we're all screwed. Move." Troy swallowed hard. "Flash drive," he mouthed. Ethan nodded. The trafficking ring. Evidence. It was always about something bigger than any one of them. The threat lingered, heavy as the stone above their heads, but the group stayed silent until the footsteps faded. As they started moving again, Blitz pressed forward, leading them through a branching tunnel. Ethan squeezed Monica's hand, a silent promise. "I won't let them hurt you. Not you, not Troy, not Blitz." The deeper they went, the heavier the dread became. Yet so did their determination. Each step forward was a defiance of the odds, a refusal to give in. In the darkness, with only their battered lantern and a scarred shepherd to lead them, they carried each other through terror and exhaustion. There was no heroism left, only the desperate, stubborn will to see another dawn. But for Ethan, it was enough. The mining tunnel felt endless, each turn a guess, each echo a threat. Sometimes the darkness seemed alive, pressing in around the group as they crawled and stumbled deeper underground. Ethan's lantern cast trembling shadows against the walls, but Blitz's presence ahead was the true compass. His nose worked furiously, his head low and ears up, pausing at every fork as if he could read secrets in the damp earth itself. They pressed on, breaths misting in the chill, boots slipping on ancient rails and icy puddles. Monica's wound throbbed with every heartbeat, but she gritted her teeth and pushed herself forward, sometimes using the tunnel wall to stay upright. Troy's nerves were raw but steadier now. He glanced at Blitz often, drawing strength from the dog's relentless focus. After what felt like a lifetime, the tunnel widened into an old chamber cluttered with the bones of abandoned equipment, rusted carts, collapsed shelving, a battered sign half buried in dust. In one corner stood a squat wooden door, battered but intact, the faded words "radio room" barely visible in the lantern's flicker. Ethan's heart leaped. If we can get a signal out, someone might still be listening. He swept the beam over the door and saw that the hinges were loose. Blitz sniffed at the crack below, then backed away, hackles raised. Ethan slid his shoulder against the wood and shoved. It creaked open, spilling them into a cramped space lined with silent consoles and tangled wires. Monica collapsed into a chair with a sigh of relief. "I thought I'd never see a real roof again." Her voice was a rasp, but she managed a small smile for Troy. Troy's hands shook as he examined the radio gear. "Wires are cut. Power's dead." His frustration showed in a hard set of his jaw. Blitz nosed Troy's hand, almost as if encouraging him to keep going. Troy took a steadying breath, staring at the chaos of wires. "My dad used to let me help him fix old CBs back in Montana. Maybe I can—" He trailed off, then began untangling the mess, his movements growing surer. Monica wiped her brow and watched, hope flickering in her tired eyes. Ethan stood watch by the door, his battered badge heavy in his pocket, his mind spinning through options and risks. The moments stretched thin, each second loud with their need for help. Blitz, sensing the tension, settled in Monica's lap. She stroked his fur, her touch lingering on the long scar at his flank. "You never quit, do you?" she murmured. Blitz closed his eyes and leaned into her, trust and exhaustion written in every line of his body. Suddenly, a pop and whine from the radio jolted the room. Troy grinned, sweat streaking his soot-blackened face. "I think I got power. Just need to get a message out before the battery dies." Ethan's heart hammered. "Let's try the county channel. Skip the police band, too risky." Troy fiddled with the dials, static hissing from the speaker. He keyed the mic, voice trembling but clear. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Truckee County deputies. Officers down, need immediate rescue. Repeat, need immediate rescue. Ambush, armed suspects, coordinates unknown." They waited, the static their only answer for a long, breathless moment. Then, faint and distorted, a reply. "Copy, signal weak. Identify, get to high ground. Nearest lookout tower. Sunrise, hold out." Ethan's shoulders sagged in relief and dread. The message was clear. If they could reach the old fire lookout before dawn, rescue was possible. But dawn was still hours away, and Mason and his men were surely hunting for them above. Monica looked at Ethan, her eyes flickering with something fierce. "We can make it. If Blitz leads, we can do this." Troy gave her a tired thumbs up. "Yeah, no way am I dying in this rat hole." Just as hope began to blossom, the radio crackled again. This time a voice slithered from the speaker, cold, venomous, unmistakable. "You can't run forever, Connors. You and your mutt, every step you take, I'm right behind you. Mason Delacroix." The sound of his voice made Monica flinch. Troy's fists clench. Blitz's ears pinned back, a low growl rumbling deep in his chest. Ethan grabbed the radio, his voice a whisper edged with steel. "We're coming, Mason, but not the way you think." Silence. Then the radio clicked dead. For a long moment, nobody moved. The weight of the confrontation pressed down on them, old betrayals and new fears intertwining in the dark. Ethan knelt beside Monica and Troy. "Get what you need. We move now. No more hiding." Monica nodded, rewrapping her arm and standing tall, pain burning in her eyes. Troy packed the toolkit and slung the broken radio over his shoulder. Maybe as evidence. Maybe as a lifeline for later. Ethan looked at Blitz, kneeling so their eyes were level. "You ready, boy?" Blitz licked his chin, a flicker of old affection, his eyes burning with stubborn devotion. Together, they pushed out into the mine again. Monica glanced back at the battered room, as if to leave her fear behind. Troy touched Blitz's fur one more time, drawing courage from the dog's steady warmth. They followed the map toward a ladder that promised escape to the forest's edge. Every step, every breath was a vow, to each other, to the badge, to the dog that had come back from fire and storm. Above, the first blue tinge of dawn was trying to break through the blizzard. Ahead, rescue, or ruin, waited in the cold. The first blue hints of dawn crept through the black forest as Ethan pushed open the hatch at the end of the mining tunnel. Cold air rushed in, sharp and biting, and the world beyond was a world of chaos. Snow swept into hard-packed drifts, wind screaming through twisted pines, every surface glazed with ice. But compared to the tunnels, it was freedom. Blitz climbed out first, his breath painting the air in quick bursts. Ethan followed, helping Monica and Troy through the hatch, steadying Monica as she staggered. The group huddled behind a jumble of fallen trees, scanning the ridgeline for movement. Distant gunfire cracked, sharp, urgent, shattering the hush of dawn. Mason and his men were close, their voices echoing across the valley. The snow muffled direction, but the threat was all too real. Ethan's mind sharpened to a razor edge. "We run for the lookout tower. he said, voice low, every word a command. Blitz leads. I'm behind Monica. Troy, stay tight. His battered badge was cold against his chest, a familiar burden. Blitz turned, nose to the wind, and started up the ridge, limp more pronounced now, but his spirit fierce. His bark sliced through the air, loud and urgent, drawing shouts and more gunshots from the trees. It was a distraction, a dare, a shepherd's challenge to every predator in the wild. Go! Ethan barked, and they moved as one, boots crunching through the drifts, Monica's arm over Ethan's shoulder for support, Troy close behind. Bullets snapped overhead, chipping bark and sending powder flying. Every footstep was agony, but adrenaline blotted out the pain. Monica stumbled, her face twisted in pain, but she never let go of Ethan's sleeve. Troy grabbed her other arm, nearly dragging her up a steep embankment as the gunfire grew louder. Blitz, refusing to stay sheltered, circled back and barked, making himself an obvious target. Another shot cracked, and Blitz spun, yelping, his side grazed by a bullet. Blitz! Monica's cry was raw, almost animal, but Blitz shook off the pain, tail high, blood staining his sable fur. He kept moving, even faster, turning back to make sure the others were still close. Ethan's heart seized, but he didn't let himself falter. Blitz's courage was gasoline for every weary muscle in his body. A wall of snow blocked their path ahead, 5 feet high, a barrier between survival and surrender. Ethan gritted his teeth and boosted Monica up, Troy scrambling after, then climbed himself, pulling Blitz last. The shepherd whimpered as Ethan checked his wound, a shallow graze, painful but not mortal. Ethan pressed his forehead to Blitz's. You're not leaving me again, you hear? Blitz licked Ethan's cheek, tail thumping, and nudged Troy forward. The group crested the ridge, and there in the distance, the old fire lookout tower punched through the tree line, its silhouette black against the rising light. Hope burned in Ethan's chest, but the forest behind them erupted. Shouts, boots, the crackle of radios, Mason's voice chilling and near. A sudden thought struck Ethan. He reached under Blitz's battered collar, where, unbelievably, the dog still wore the tag from his K9 days. His fingers brushed something cold and sharp, taped to the inside. A flash drive, mud-caked but intact. Ethan's heart pounded. The evidence, the missing link tying Mason and his crew to everything. The trafficking ring, the ambush, the murders. He slid the flash drive into his pocket, feeling the weight of it. It was the old sheriff's last gamble, a legacy that had survived fire, betrayal, and death. Troy's voice cut through the wind. They're circling. 2 to the right, 3 behind. His training, so often doubted, kicked in, sharp and steady. Monica clenched her jaw. We have to move, or we're boxed in. Ethan scanned the slope. I'll draw them off. Troy, take Monica. Get to the tower. Blitz. He choked. You stick with them, you hear me? But Blitz refused. He pressed against Ethan, teeth bared, ready to defend or die. Ethan saw the determination in the dog's eyes, the stubborn, defiant love that only a shepherd could carry. A bullet struck the snow inches from Troy's foot. There was no more time. All at once they broke cover, sprinting for the lookout, snow up to their knees. Monica stumbled, nearly falling, but Troy caught her, half carrying her the last 20 yards. Blitz limped in a tight circle around them, barking, drawing fire, never letting the attackers close the gap. Ethan fired back, buying precious seconds, every shot a message. We're not done. The lookout tower loomed, closer now, salvation just out of reach. Monica, breath hitching, forced herself up the stairs, Troy and Blitz right behind. Ethan brought up the rear, bullets whistling around him, the flash drive burning a hole in his pocket. At the top, Monica slammed the trapdoor shut, barricading it with a splintered chair. The four of them collapsed in the cramped room, chests heaving, Blitz's blood dripping onto the ancient wood. Blitz dropped at Ethan's feet, tail thumping even as he trembled. Monica pressed her hands to the wound, trying to staunch the bleeding. "You're okay," she whispered, voice shaking. "You're okay, buddy." Below, Mason's voice echoed up the tower, rage and desperation twisting every word. "You think you're safe? You're not! I'm ending this, Connors!" But inside the lookout, for a single, trembling moment, hope outweighed fear. The tower was battered. The storm was far from over. But they had Blitz, each other, and the evidence that could save them all. Ethan looked around at his team. Monica's fierce eyes, Troy's trembling hands, Blitz's undying courage. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The wind screamed around the fire lookout tower, rattling the thin glass and setting every loose board to shivering. Sunrise was only a faint promise on the horizon, a cold gold that barely touched the mountain's frozen skin. Inside the cramped room at the top, Ethan, Monica, Troy, and Blitz huddled together, their breaths visible in the chill. Down below, Mason and his armed men circled, their angry shouts blending with the roar of the storm. Monica pressed her scarf to Blitz's wound, blood soaking through the fabric. She whispered, "Hang on, boy. Just a little longer." Blitz's breathing was ragged, but his eyes never left Ethan, never wavering, not even now. Troy clutched the broken radio, fingers shaking. "Battery's dead. If we want help, we have to make a scene they can't ignore." Ethan scanned the room. A battered cot, a broken table, a flare gun with only one flare, and a small window facing the road below. The tower was a fortress only in the most desperate sense, exposed, fragile, a last hope perched above a killing ground. A bullet shattered the glass. Everyone ducked as shards rained down. Mason's voice thundered from below. "Come out, Connors! Give me the flash drive and the dog! Maybe I'll let the rest walk!" Ethan's jaw clenched. "Not happening, Mason." He motioned Monica to the radio, Troy to the stairs, then knelt beside Blitz. The dog's flank rose and fell with each breath, blood matting his sable coat. Ethan pressed his forehead to Blitz's. "Stay with me, partner. You're the reason we're all still here." Blitz's tail thumped softly, his eyes clear even through pain. Another volley of gunfire split the air, splintering the door at the top of the stairs. Monica grabbed the radio mic, frantically working the wires. "If anyone's out there, Truckee County, U.S. Marshals, Park Rangers, officers under attack, need immediate backup at Eagle Lookout. Repeat, need backup." Static. Silence. Monica looked at Ethan, fear flickering beneath her resolve. Ethan pulled Monica and Troy close, his voice steady despite the chaos. "We hold this tower until help comes, no matter what. Troy, cover the stairs. Monica, keep trying the radio. Blitz." He looked at the dog, who struggled to rise, muscles trembling. "Guard the door. If Mason gets through, we stop him. Together." Mason's men began their final assault. Bootsteps thundered up the stairs, bullets smashing through the thin wooden walls. Troy, hands shaking, fired Ethan's spare sidearm down the stairwell, forcing the attackers to duck for cover. Monica screamed into the radio, voice breaking, "This is Deputy Price. Anyone, please, send help." The door burst open. Mason stormed in, gun raised, eyes wild with fury. "It ends now, Connors!" Ethan tackled Mason, the two men crashing against the battered table, fists and elbows flying. Monica dove for cover, shielding Blitz with her body. Troy, face pale, eyes wild, blocked the door, firing blindly to keep Mason's men from flooding in. Ethan and Mason grappled, both men bloodied, each driven by something old and poisonous. Betrayal, revenge, the weight of too many wrong choices. Mason landed a heavy blow, but Ethan rolled, grabbing the flash drive from his pocket and hurling it toward Monica. "Run!" he gasped. But Mason swung his gun at Ethan, finger on the trigger, hate burning in his eyes. Before he could fire, Blitz surged forward, launching himself at Mason with the last of his strength. The shepherd's teeth sank into Mason's wrist, forcing the shot wide. Mason roared, slamming Blitz into the wall, but the dog refused to let go, even as blood streaked the floor. Monica, sobbing, crawled to the radio, one hand still pressing Blitz's wound, the other desperately keying the mic. "We're under attack. Officer down, please, anyone." Troy, battered and desperate, planted himself over Blitz, emptying the sidearm at the last attacker trying to breach the stairs. The man collapsed, leaving the tower eerily silent except for the labored breathing of those inside. Ethan, breathless, wrestled Mason to the ground, pinning him with a knee. Mason struggled, spitting curses, but Ethan's grip was unyielding. "It's over," Ethan growled. "You're done." Below, a sudden rush of engines, trucks, SUVs, sirens, broke the dawn's quiet. Blue and red lights strobed the woods as federal agents and local deputies stormed up the hillside, weapons drawn. Monica's message had finally gotten through. The agents burst into the tower, hauling Mason and his remaining men away. Monica slumped in relief, tears streaking her face. Troy, shaking but alive, handed over the flash drive, evidence that would finally bring justice. Ethan knelt beside Blitz, cradling the dog's head in his lap. Blitz's eyes fluttered. Ethan's own tears fell unchecked, his voice breaking. "You did it, boy. You saved us all." Monica crawled over, laying a trembling hand on Blitz's scarred flank. "He's a hero," she whispered. Sirens wailed, the tower crowded now with medics and agents. For the first time all night, hope was real, solid as the sunrise flooding the tower's battered windows. As Blitz was lifted gently onto a stretcher, Ethan squeezed the shepherd's paw. "Stay with me," he said, voice trembling. "I still need you." And as the storm faded and light filled the mountains, every survivor in that tower knew this dog, this battered team, had made it through the darkest night, together. The nightmare ended with the rising sun, but its echoes lingered. Sirens faded into the hush of dawn. Medics moved with quiet urgency, patching wounds and securing the last of Mason's men. The once violent mountaintop now felt strangely sacred, a place marked by blood, loss, and a fragile sense of deliverance. Ethan sat slumped on a hard plastic chair in the trauma wing of Tahoe County Hospital, still wearing torn, soot-stained clothes. Every muscle ached with exhaustion. His battered badge hung heavy on his chest, a silent witness to all he had survived, and all he'd nearly lost. Across the glass, in the animal ICU, Blitz lay stretched out on a thick pad, hooked to monitors, IV lines snaking into his foreleg. His breaths were shallow, but his eyes fluttered open at the sound of Ethan's voice. Ethan pressed his palm against the glass, fighting a tide of emotions that threatened to drag him under. Grief and gratitude, relief and guilt, all mixed into something sharp enough to cut. "You can rest now, buddy," Ethan whispered, voice barely audible. "You did more than anyone could have asked for." Blitz's tail tapped the mat once, a feeble answer, but one that made Ethan's eyes burn. The guilt he'd carried, about his late wife, about Blitz's disappearance, about leading Monica and Troy into danger, rose up with fresh teeth. He let it come. This time he didn't shut it away. Sitting there in the cold hospital light, Ethan allowed himself to weep into his hands, letting the pain finally move through him. It felt like something breaking, something necessary. A gentle knock at the door broke the moment. Monica entered, her arm wrapped in fresh bandages, moving slower but more certain. She sat beside Ethan in silence, eyes red but shining. "Blitz saved us all," she finally said, her voice rough from smoke and tears. "If he hadn't—" Ethan shook his head. "You kept us together. You kept Troy moving, even when you could barely stand." He managed a tired smile. "You saved me too." There was a pause, thick with the weight of everything unspoken. Monica reached out, squeezing Ethan's hand. "You always blame yourself, but you don't have to do that anymore. You did enough, Ethan. More than enough." He nodded, letting the words settle, letting them begin to heal something old and wounded inside him. Down the hall, Troy limped toward them, a cast on his wrist, bruises coloring his jaw. He stopped at the window, pressing his fingers to the glass. "I used to think I was weak," he murmured, voice cracking. "But Blitz, he never let me give up. Not in the fire, not in the dark. He made me believe I could be more than just afraid." Monica nodded, her eyes glistening. "You're not alone, Troy. Not anymore. You're one of us. We take care of our own." A hush fell over the room, a moment of stillness that held grief, but also hope. When the vet finally appeared with a soft smile and a thumbs up, Ethan felt a wave of relief so strong he nearly sobbed. Blitz was not only alive, but recovering, his wound clean, his spirit undiminished. "He's got a limp, and he's going to need rest," the vet explained, "but he's tougher than any dog I've ever seen." Ethan and Monica stepped into the ICU, kneeling at Blitz's side. Monica stroked his fur with trembling fingers. "Thank you, hero," she whispered. "You brought us all home." Ethan pressed his forehead to Blitz's, feeling the dog's heartbeat steady under his palm. For the first time since his wife's passing, Ethan allowed himself to feel joy without fear, love without the shadow of loss. That afternoon, as news of Mason's arrest and the evidence found on the flash drive spread, the hospital filled with colleagues and townspeople. There was no celebration, just a deep, solemn gratitude. The story of what had happened in the mountains traveled fast. A disgraced lawman brought to justice, a trafficking ring dismantled, and a battered K-9 who would not quit. In the quiet that followed, Monica and Troy sat together by the window, sunlight warming their faces. Monica turned to Troy, her voice soft but firm. "We owe Blitz and each other a promise. We never let what happened change the good in us. We fight for each other, no matter what." Troy nodded, fierce pride in his eyes. "He showed me what courage is. Even when you're scared, even when it hurts, you stay. You fight." Ethan stood in the doorway, watching his deputies, his family, heal in ways he'd thought impossible. The bonds forged in fire and snow would not easily break. That night, Ethan found himself sitting beside Blitz under the glow of the setting sun, the air cool and clean. He thought of all they had lost, and all they had found. In Blitz's steady gaze, he saw a reflection of everything good and enduring. Loyalty that would not be shaken, courage that did not ask for reward, the possibility of healing even the deepest wounds. The lesson was as old as the badge Ethan wore, that loyalty and courage, even in the face of overwhelming darkness, can pull us back from the edge. That the smallest act, one dog refusing to give up, can reawaken trust, break the cycle of trauma, and make survivors out of the broken. The town of Truckee rallied around its wounded deputies and their canine guardian. In standing up to corruption, even when it wore a familiar face, Ethan and his team honored the best of what it meant to serve. The story, as it rippled through the community, became more than just one of violence and survival. It was about the necessity of standing together, of refusing to let darkness win, and of honoring the unbreakable bond between human and animal. As Ethan and Blitz sat together, watching the world grow golden with evening, there was no need for words. The bond between them, like the scars they both carried, spoke for itself. The sun over Truckee rose clear and golden, washing the town in gentle light that glinted off snowbanks and rooftops. It was a day for healing, a rare peace settling over the Sierra Nevada, the mountains standing silent and strong. Down in the square, neighbors gathered in thick coats and wool hats, drawn together by something more powerful than curiosity or ceremony. They came for a homecoming. They came for hope. Ethan stood at the edge of the crowd, feeling the weight of his uniform, clean, pressed, his badge polished until it caught the light. He hadn't worn it with pride in years, not since loss had hollowed out something inside him. Today, though, he stood tall, shoulders straight, a different man than the one who'd driven into that storm. At his side, Blitz limped proudly, the long scar along his flank visible beneath the new red bandana tied by the local kids. His fur shone, his eyes alert. The townspeople parted, faces brightening, some with tears as Blitz passed. There were signs, hand-drawn posters. "Thank you, Blitz. Our guardian." Children ran to pet him, parents snapped pictures, and elderly folks nodded with knowing respect. Monica and Troy stood close, both in dress blues, both marked by scars and new purpose. Monica's arm was still in a sling, but her smile was radiant. Troy, though still walking carefully, looked taller, more confident, no longer just the rookie with trembling hands. They had survived, and everyone in Truckee could see the difference. The mayor took the stage, clearing his throat. His voice carried over the hush. "Today, we recognize not just bravery in the face of danger, but the kind of loyalty that saves lives, that binds a community. Sergeant Connors, Deputy Price, Deputy Benson, and Blitz." Applause thundered, rolling over the square like a wave. Ethan's throat tightened as he looked down at Blitz, who wagged his tail, ears perked, sensing the love in every face. The mayor continued, "There are stories we tell our children, of courage, of standing up for what's right. Now we have our own legend. We watched as these officers risked everything. We saw a dog, presumed lost, return in our darkest hour. We saw hope return to Truckee." He gestured to Ethan. "Sergeant, the town has something for you, and for Blitz." Ethan guided Blitz up the steps, the old dog moving carefully, but with undeniable pride. The mayor presented a plaque, in honor of Blitz, town guardian and hero. The sheriff's office pinned a new medallion to Blitz's collar, engraved with his name and a simple inscription, "Never give up." A hush fell as Ethan stepped to the microphone. He took a long, steadying breath, his voice resonant with truth and gratitude. "I spent a long time thinking the world was too broken to fix. I lost my way. But sometimes, the one who saves you isn't the strongest, or the fastest, or even human. Sometimes it's the one who never gives up, even when everyone else has." He paused, looking at Monica, Troy, and Blitz. Then at the gathered townspeople, his family, his responsibility, his reason. "This dog brought me back from the edge. He brought all of us back. So if you ever doubt what courage looks like, remember Blitz. Remember today." The crowd erupted. Cheers, applause, tears. Monica wrapped an arm around Troy's shoulders. Children shouted Blitz's name. Someone started singing America the Beautiful, and the crowd joined in, voices rising to the clear blue sky. After the ceremony, as people drifted away, Ethan knelt in the snow, facing Blitz. He pressed his forehead to the dogs and whispered, "You're home for good now. No more running. Your family." Blitz licked Ethan's cheek, his tail swishing. A silent vow returned. Monica, Troy, and Ethan lingered together as the sun began its slow descent, the golden hour making the snow sparkle. Monica spoke softly, her words for them alone. "We did more than survive. We found our way back." Troy nodded, eyes on Blitz. "He's proof that you can lose everything and still come home." As days passed, the legend of Blitz and the deputies grew, not as a tale of violence or vengeance, but as a story of loyalty, resilience, and the quiet heroism of refusing to give up. Kids at the school drew pictures of Blitz leading search and rescue drills. Senior citizens brought treats to the station, and every patrol car carried a little red ribbon in his honor. The evidence Ethan and the team had recovered dismantled Mason's network, freeing dozens who'd been trapped in darkness. Other departments reached out for training, asking about Ethan's methods, about Monica's courage under fire, about the deputy who found strength in fear, and always, always about the dog who wouldn't quit. Blitz became more than a guardian. He was the town's living symbol of hope. When someone was lost in the forest, folks said, "Blitz will find them." When someone was grieving, they'd remember how a broken team and a battered dog had stitched themselves back together. For Ethan, Monica, Troy, and everyone in Truckee, the story was never really about a badge, a uniform, or even the nightmare they'd survived. It was about how courage and love, however battered, can heal not just wounds, but whole communities. One evening, as sunset painted the mountains in pink and gold, Ethan and Blitz walked together by the lake. The dog, limping but joyful, watched the sun sink behind the peaks. Ethan knelt, running his hand through Blitz's fur. There was no sound but the soft lapping of water. No fear but the memory of old pain. Side by side, man and dog watched the last light fade, a testament to all they'd lost, all they'd found, and the unbreakable bond that would carry them both forward. And so, in the heart of the mountains, a battered town and a wounded family found their way back to the light. One act of courage, one loyal heart at a time. Blitz's legacy wasn't just about survival. It was about how hope, once sparked, can outlive even fire. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and follow for more tales of courage and the bonds that make us whole.